Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, y'all are having a wonderful day today. So, of course, I thought that I would give my little fight review of the Artur Beterbiev versus Joe Smith Jr. unification fight. And of course, for those of you that did not hear the results, Mr. Artur Beterbiev, just like I predicted, was victorious. However, I did predict in this fight that I thought maybe this fight would last anywhere from about 9 to 11 rounds. And I definitely was wrong on that fight prediction. Artur Beterbiev not only overall was able to beat Joe Smith Jr., he was pretty much able to completely decimate him. Artur Beterbiev, very obviously, is a very, very great athlete, not only for the division, but I do believe that he is a very highly skilled boxer for that division. Now, of course, if you take a look at Artur Beterbiev, he's not necessarily someone that always looks the most fluid. He doesn't always look to have that A grade head movement, and some people, of course, would say that maybe he does not have a great defense, but I would personally at least disagree with some of the categories. What I'll say about Artur Beterbiev is this. I think the one flaw that I would say about Artur Beterbiev is that at times he does appear to be a little bit stiff. Sometimes he could have a little bit more head movement. But other than that, I actually believe that Artur Beterbiev is a pretty solid all around boxer. Not only all in all does he have devastating power, but he has excellent counterpunching ability whether he is on the front foot or the back foot. He really knows overall not only to go up to the head, but go to the body as well. He knows how to break you down incrementally. We've seen it last time against a very talented boxer in Marcus Brown. We've seen it against Alexander Vozdik. And we also seen it, I believe, against a couple of other decent boxers as well. And now after this performance over Joe Smith Jr., and I don't necessarily believe that Joe Smith Jr. is an A-grade fighter, at least for Artur Beterbiev's sake, because they're both the same size. But the way that he was able to handle him, and I don't even believe that Joe Smith Jr. has ever even been stopped in his career. In fact, to be quite honest with you, I really don't even remember one time he has ever been knocked down in his career, even against Dmitry Bivol, who, of course, in my opinion, right now is on my current top 10 pound for pound list. He was never even able to knock down Joe Smith Jr., I believe. He was just able to embarrass him and hurt him a multitude of times. It's very clear that Artur Beterbiev, that power is on a whole nother level compared to almost anything I've seen in recent years, especially for that of the light heavyweight division. He may even have more natural power than what an Adonis Stevenson and what a Sergey Kovalev had when they were in their primes. I don't think that I've ever seen a light heavyweight, at least during my time, run through even top-notch opponents the way that he has been doing. And the question is about Artur Beterbiev at the current moment in time. Excuse me, at the current moment in time, is overall where does he deserve to rank on the pound per pound list? And is he on the top 10 pound per pound list? And I think that you certainly could debate him on any top 10 pound per pound list. I'm not necessarily sure if I would have him there quite yet, but if you were going to debate him up there, I certainly would not have a problem with it. The only thing is that he does just only have work within one weight division. I would not say that he necessarily has an A+ win, but at the end of the day, he is getting very close. And if he is able to get that unification fight next against that of Dmitry Bivol, I believe all in all that is going to be potentially one of the biggest fights of the year. And if you had to ask me all in all who do I believe would win that fight, I may even have to go with that of Artur Beterbiev. And I know a lot of people will say, well, what are you talking about? Dmitry Bivol, he looked really good against Canelo Alvarez. To be honest with you, I thought that Dmitry Bivol's performance was good, but I didn't think that it was great against Canelo Alvarez, at least for his standards. And I know a certain amount of people they'll say, well, what are you talking about? To be honest, Canelo Alvarez in that fight to me, and that's not me trying to make excuses, Canelo Alvarez in that fight pretty much looked like he was at about 40%. And the skill set was still somewhat there, but the problem with Canelo in that fight, I believe, is just that his stamina really was not there whatsoever. His stamina I thought was really horrible. I thought that, he ran out of gas pretty much within the first 4 rounds. And pretty much every round after that, I thought that Dmitry Bivol was able to take, even sometimes quite easily, because Canelo Alvarez just had no fight in him left because of the lack of stamina. So if Canelo is going to have a chance at the light heavyweight division, in my view, he's going to have to try to lose some of that muscle mass, and he is going to have to adapt his style to those fighters. Because if he thinks that he's just going to go into the ring and try to knock these fighters out like what he did Dmitry Bivol, and overall just go in there with a one-dimensional game plan like he did against that of Dmitry Bivol, he is not going to beat either Dmitry Bivol in a rematch, and he will not beat Artur Beterbiev. To be honest with you, he may not even last if he goes into the fight against Artur Beterbiev like he did against Dmitry Bivol. He may not even last a full 8 rounds because Artur Beterbiev's power and also his boxing ability is on another level compared to the majority of fighters out there. And I do have to give Mr. Artur Beterbiev a very decent amount of credit. But anyways, overall, that's pretty much about it for the video. I am very excited to see where Mr. Artur Beterbiev goes from here. He is the only world champion at the current moment in time. I believe all in all that not only is somewhat unified, but also has a 100% knockout ratio. And unlike kind of like when Deontay Wilder had it, and I know a lot of people, they'll kind of state, well, you're kind of going after Deontay Wilder here. And this is not me trying to throw a jab, but a lot of the times when people would mention Deontay Wilder that he had this many knockouts in a row, I mean, that's great, but at the end of the day, what does that really mean when you have knockouts against fighters that really are pretty much people that are brung from the street? It is what it is. Besides Luis Ortiz, of course, that was a very decent opponent, and Bermain Stavern, if you want to bring him in there. But the majority of opponents that Deontay Wilder ended up knocking out, they really were not that A-grade quality. It just is what it is. It's also very similar with that of Naoya Inoue. A lot of people, of course, have told me recently that they believe that Naoya Inoue is top 5 pound for pound. I can't personally agree because he has no, at least 100% for sure, A-grade wins on his resume. Artur Beterbiev is kind of in that Naoya Inoue class, to where overall he looks extraordinarily dominant, but I would even have to say that he has a better resume in my view than what a Naoya Inoue has, just because of that Alexander Gvozdyk win. Alexander Gvozdyk was coming off of a knockout win over Adonis Stevenson. It was a big unification fight. He had a great amateur pedigree background. He was from the Ukraine, which has been a country that has been on fire with certain fighters within the past few years. And overall, Artur Beterbiev, even though it was a tough fight here and there, he was able to incrementally break him down, and it put so much damage on Alexander Gvozdyk that he actually had to retire, and he still has never boxed professionally once again a day in his life after that fight. Artur Beterbiev is a devastating athlete, a devastating puncher, and it's very obvious in my view that he has very decent boxing ability. But where will he go from here? Well, hopefully we get to see the Dmitry Bivol fights, maybe a Canelo Alvarez fight in the future. If Canelo Alvarez can beat that of Gennady Golovkin in the trilogy, which I do expect, the move for Canelo Alvarez after that, in my view, would either to be go after Ilunga Makabu overall, maybe get a little bit heavier for that fight against a fighter that probably is not on the same level as an Artur Beterbiev or that of a Dmitry Bivol, but that would get you used to the weight possibly. Or maybe you could face out of a David Benavidez. Now, some may say, well, why not Jamal Charlo, excuse me. Well, the reason why that is because if Canelo does plan to unify at the light heavyweight division or beat those guys, I think he's going to have to face people that are going to be a little bit bigger in stature. So Canelo, if he is going to have a chance for that, maybe he would want to do that within his next few fights. Or maybe Canelo Alvarez will just want to chill out at 160. Maybe he'll want to face Jamal Charlo, maybe face David Benavidez, face those guys first, and then later on go after Dmitry Bivol or Artur Beterbiev, whoever the winner of that unification fight could be. But anyways, that's really about it for today. I'm very excited to see what the future is for some of these super middleweights and also the light heavyweights. Another undefeated light heavyweight that I personally forgot about as well is also Mr. Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez. So we could very well see him make a return. I don't know if John Pascal will make a return or not. I can't necessarily remember, but we'll see what happens. Anyways, that's really about it for today. Thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to y'all later, and we'll see what happens next.